So this is now we're only hearing one side. So far, only Adam Schiff has questioned. Now the counsel for the Democrats are talking to Ambassador Sondland. So we're getting a very one-sided view. If the Republicans cannot pull his testimony apart, and even if they do at this point, the media will declare victory. You will see today the victory laps that are going to be made by the media and every Democrat. Everything that happens after probably the next 30 minutes will not matter to the media, will not matter to anyone. Adam Schiff today has done a very good job of boxing the president into a very tight box with this ambassador, and he looks credible. And that's one of the things you have to look at is how is America going to view him? And if they watch any of this, he is viewed, he looks very credible. I didn't think Vindman was credible yesterday. I didn't think a few of the people looked credible, that you had confidence. Yeah, this guy he's not saying anything but the truth. Sondland has come on very affable. Both sides is cut down, both sides of the issue, and looks like he has not a care in the world on what he is saying. It gives him the ability to look very, very credible. What he has said is that there was quid pro quo. That's a quote. For anybody who is asking if there was quid pro quo, yes, there was. But what he is saying is that it was about the meeting that the president and Zelensky were to have at the White House. He then later said about this that the president wanted an announcement that he was going to look into Burisma and the 2016 election. Now, Trump's defense here is, because we have to look into corruption. And all of them are saying that Trump was misguided. Okay, fine. That believed that there was real corruption going on. So it makes sense that he would say, no, I want an announcement. I want to see it. There's documents from Sondland telling Zelensky that in your phone call, you must say that it's going to be a full and transparent investigation. There's nothing wrong with any of that. However, what Sondland has just said is that he felt, again, it's hearsay, he felt that Trump didn't even care if there was an investigation. He just wanted the announcement. Quote, I'm not sure they even had to do it, meaning the investigation.
Yeah, that's very significant. We brought this up before. And the main thing that we keep coming back to is whether he was doing this out of U.S. interest or he's doing it out of his own personal political benefit. And there's no way you're going to find that unless Donald Trump blurted it out on tape somewhere, right? So the way they're going to try to prove that is to say that the ask was not for an actual investigation of this corruption. The ask was for an announcement of it on CNN to U.S. consumers. They wanted a public announcement that Biden looked like he was a bad guy, and maybe the election wasn't on the up and up, and we're going to look into that. The fact that Sondland multiple times has said it was not about the investigation, it was about the announcement of the investigation, and it didn't even matter if they did the investigation, is something that Sondland is out there specifically trying to strengthen the case of the Democrats that this was about personal gain, not about actual corruption in Ukraine.
There's one other thing that Adam Schiff shifted to right before the end. He was having a conversation. Sondland was having a conversation after a meeting with with Pence in Poland. And after the meeting, the Ukrainian guy came to the ambassador and said, okay, what's happening here? Because I just heard that the aid is now being held up. Is this part of this? And he said, look, I don't know. Now, he did say at that time, I began to assume that it was. But what he said was, I just needed to break this logjam. And he told the guy from Ukraine at this meeting, after this meeting, look, I don't know what it is, but we just have to break this logjam. So he said, I'm just trying to get everybody to do what they have to do to be able to break the logjam. I don't care what it is. But then Schiff changed the language, and he said, so what the president was asking for, and you said you have to break the logjam, did that logjam now include the money? Well, yes, it's a logjam for whatever was clogging up the system. But it included the money, yes. Did Donald Trump write that check himself? No. Was that an official act that the president was holding back? Well, yes, I presume that it was. That's all presumption. But then Schiff says this. So was this a meeting at the White House just to meet? No, it was supposed to be a working meeting. So this was also an official act of the president. Well, yes, we wanted to have an official meeting between them. So this was an official act. Yes. What he's driving to is the bribery case. The president was holding back official acts. Basically, this is the Hillary Clinton. They're making donations to the Clinton Foundation, and then they find themselves in a room with Hillary Clinton having a meeting. Okay, it's basically that story, except there's no Clinton Foundation involved. It's just, I want you to make this announcement. And the Democrats care this time. But that's what's happening. Now, Sondland is going to be wrapping up with the Democratic council. And then we'll probably take a break, and they'll start again at midnight when nobody is watching. But let's take a little bit more of the Gordon Sondland's
example of
testimony.
The big stuff, the Biden investigation that Rudy Giuliani was pushing. Do you recall that?
I don't. I recall Burisma, not Biden.
But do you recall saying, at least referring to an investigation that Rudy Giuliani was pushing? Is that something that you likely would have said?
I would have, yes.
Now, even if you don't recall specifically mentioning the Biden investigation to David Holmes, we know that it was certainly on President Trump's mind. Because just the day before, in his call with President Zelensky, he mentions specifically the Biden investigation. And I want to show you that exhibit, or that excerpt from the call on July 25th, where President Trump says, the other thing, there's a lot of talk about Biden's son, that Biden stopped the prosecution, and a lot of people want to find out about that. So whatever you can do with the Attorney General would be great. Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution, so if you can look into it, it sounds horrible to me. President Zelensky then responds with a reference to the company that he's referring to. And two witnesses yesterday said that when President Zelensky actually said the company, he said Burisma. So you would agree that regardless of whether you knew about the connection to the Bidens, at the very least that you now know that that's what President Trump wanted at the time through the Burisma investigation.
I now know it all, of course.
And at this time, you were aware of the president's desire, along with Rudy Giuliani, to do these investigations, including the 2016 election interference investigation. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, stop for a second. I just want to point out before we take a break. This is where this should focus. And the president has made an error, in my opinion, on going for there was no quid pro quo. Of course, all of life is a quid pro quo. You know, marriage is a quid pro quo. I'm going to do these things and you'll be my wife. You'll do those things and I'll be your husband. You stop doing those things and start sleeping with other people. That wasn't in the agreement. So all of life is a quid pro quo, but he has made it about that. So he has given them a huge win today. But this line of questioning is important because you have to assume that there is absolutely nothing that is in the national interest to even look into regarding the 2016 campaign and the Bidens. Now, remember, Joe Biden's son's partner, Christopher Hines, John Kerry's stepson, he is on record saying, I got as far away from that Burisma deal as I could. Mm-hmm. He quit and said, guys, you are in dangerous territory here. So to assume that there is nothing to be found and there is no reason to even look into the 2016 election is nonsense, is total nonsense.
Well, and it's funny because you're hearing a lot of this separation between Biden and Burisma. Like, Trump wanted Biden, but I heard them say Burisma, which would have been legitimate, but not Biden. So, and it's a hilarious distinction because it's not only being made by Sondland today and others yesterday, it's been by almost every witness that was hostile to the president. And what they say is Burisma was well known for corruption. They were very well known in the Ukraine for corruption, and we knew they were corrupt. However, going after Biden is way over the top. Now,
no, but it is not, especially if you look at the quote from the phone call. Biden bragged he got the prosecutor fired from looking into Burisma. He bragged about it. That doesn't seem good to me.
Right. And of course these things are tied.
Yes.
You can't say it's okay to investigate Burisma, but it doesn't involve the Bidens at all. That would, of course, be part of the investigation if you investigated Burisma. You have the vice president of the United States who's influencing policy. You have the policy that the vice president was executing was hurting the number one competitor of Burisma, and his son works at the freaking company. How can you not tie those together?
I will tell you right now, I have heard of a giant mouse in pants and red shoes that is walking around in Orlando right now. Mm-hmm. And you can look into it, but you are not allowed to look into Disney or Walt Disney or the Walt Disney Company.
But I can investigate the mouse walking around Orlando?
But you are not allowed to attach that crazy story by itself of a giant 4-foot mouse walking around with Walt Disney, the Walt Disney Company, or Disney World.